Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing well. I am very sorry for the delay. I planned to record this video 2 weeks ago, but I was a bit under the weather. Well, not a bit, a lot actually. So I had to postpone the recording. Fortunately, I feel much better now, so I'm glad I can show you my favorite eyeshadow palettes for the winter season. This video is not a ranking. All the palettes I'm going to show you are my favorites. I use them a lot. I enjoy them a lot. They are all good quality, a good formula. So without any further ado, let's get started. The first palette I want to show you is the palette that I'm wearing on my eyes today. It's the Metal Boots in the Snow eyeshadow palette from Byredo. And this is one of my all-time favorites, not only from the brand, but also one of my all-time favorites for winter. I just love everything about this palette. And I know that Byredo palettes can sometimes be hit or miss, even for me. I do not like all the Byredo palettes, especially the ones in the oyster-shaped packaging. This packaging, sometimes the quality isn't there or the formula is just very hard to work with. But this one is absolutely gorgeous. This is a gem. I think everyone needs to have this palette. There are two reasons I love this palette. First of all, the formula. It's excellent. This is very easy to work with. You can't go wrong with this formula. What I usually do is not apply these shades with your typical blending brush or your flat eyeshadow packer. No, I use a brush with a round tip. And I do not apply the eyeshadow using sweeping motions. No, I just tap this onto my eyelid. That provides for me the best color payoff. It's the most easy way to apply these shades. It just gives the best result for me personally. It's possible that this technique doesn't work for you. Please just use the techniques you want. But if you ever experience any issues with the Byredo formula, then make sure to try out some different techniques. Because the Byredo formula is not a formula for makeup beginners. So if you are new to eyeshadow, then you probably will experience some issues with the Byredo formula. You really need to test and try what works for you. So please don't give up. Just give this formula another chance. Keep trying different techniques and you will find a way to apply these shades in the best possible way. But for me, I do not experience any issues with this formula. For me, this works absolutely fine. I get a good color payoff. Pigmentation of these shades is excellent. I really love this formula. Furthermore, I really like this color story. And at first glance, it may seem a little bit typical. You see silver, you see blue, you see brown and green, which is of course a very typical winter color story. But when you have a closer look, you can see what makes these shades so special. In this palette we have 5 shades. On the left and the right we have 2 silver shades. The one on the right is a metallic shade. The one on the left is a glitter shade. In the middle we see a beautiful deep blue shade. Next to it on the left we have a dark brown with a touch of green. And on the right we have a green with a touch of brown. And especially that last shade is very special in my opinion. It's a metallic shade, but it kind of looks like a duochrome. It provides a very special effect. It's hard to describe, but I'm gonna give it a try. When I apply the shade, then I see the green with that touch of brown, but depending on how the light catches the shade, you see either more of the green or you see either a kind of golden sheen to it. Like I said, it's very hard to describe. I think you have to see this in person to understand what I mean. Furthermore, the shades in this palette, they pair very, very well. It doesn't really matter where on the eye you apply what shade. These just work together. You can do whatever you want with this palette and you will create a good look. This is a very well curated color story. And also, this is a very versatile palette. You get 5 shades, but you can do, I think, about 10 looks, maybe more, with this palette. You can either do a one and done look with one of the shades. You can combine the blue with the silver. You can buy all shades together, of course, but you can also just combine those two brownish greens or greenish browns. You can do whatever you want with this palette. So for a palette with just 5 shades, you can create a lot of different looks. So like I said in the beginning, this is one of my all-time favorites for winter, and I also think that this is one of the best palettes Byredo has ever created. Up next is a quad from Tom Ford. It's this one, the Violet Satiné Eye Color Quad. Unfortunately, this was limited edition. This one is not available anymore, which is a pity because I think this is a must-have. I wish this was part of their permanent collection. Unfortunately not. This is one of my most used palettes from Tom Ford now during winter. In this palette we have 4 shades, 2 mattes and 2 metallics. The mattes, the first one on the left is a purple shade that leans more reddish, and the other one is deeper in tone, darker in tone, and that one leans more cool in tone. And then the metallics, the first one is a very light shade with a white base and pink and violet particles. And the other one is more violet blue in tone with a touch of silver. And the 2 matte shades in this palette aren't even that special. I think we all have shades like these in our collection. But those other 2 shades, they are phenomenal. Oh my god, I love those 2 shades so much. And especially that lightest shade here, I find this one so special and so beautiful on the eyes. You know, this palette is a little bit darker in tone, but when you use this color in your look, it instantly brightens the face, the eyes. It just does so much for your eye look. I adore this shade, but this one, the darker one, is very pretty too. So this is one of my favorite palettes from Tom Ford. Unfortunately, limited edition and not available anymore. Another purple violet palette that I really like now during winter is this one from Viseart. It's the Violet Vespertine eyeshadow palette. And what I like so much about this palette is that it's a purple palette, a violet palette, but it doesn't lean extremely cool. And of course, Viseart has one of the best eyeshadow formulas ever. I cannot imagine anyone not enjoying this formula. That's almost impossible. I think that everyone is able to work with the Viseart formula. I really love the versatility of this palette. You can create so many different looks with this palette. Whether you want to do a quick and easy daytime look, or you want to go for an intense look for a party or a special occasion, it's all possible with this palette from Viseart. I love that you can do a soft look, a lighter look by just using the first row of shades combined with the lighter metallics, or you can do a more intense look by using the darker shades down here combined with those darker metallic shades. So I really enjoy this palette. This one, the Violet Vespertine, and also the Violet Satiné from Tom Ford. Those two are my favorite violet purple palettes for winter. Up next is another palette from Viseart. Of course, I had to include the Sireneuse palette in this video because this is definitely my most used eyeshadow palette at this moment. This palette is one of the best palettes of 2024, and in my opinion also one of the best palettes Viseart has ever created. I am in love with every single shade in the Sireneuse palette. This color story is very well curated. I love the neutral vibe of this palette combined with the pops of color. Absolutely stunning. In my opinion, this palette is a must-have. You can do so much with this palette. I really love it. You have a variety of mattes, there are some metallics, there are some duochromes in this palette. And I'm not going to talk about this one too much in detail because you can find a review of this palette on my channel with comparisons, swatches, and all the information you need about Sireneuse. Again, one of my most used and one of my most beloved palettes for winter. We see a lot of cool toned eyeshadows during winter, which makes total sense, of course. But I do not want to wear cool tones all the time. I also wear warmer tones during winter. So there's a warm toned palette I want to show you in this video, and that's this one from NARS. It's the Endless Nights eyeshadow palette. This one was limited edition. I think this got released in the winter or for the holidays of 2022, if I'm not mistaken. I can't recall, but I think it was 2022. And this is the palette I grab whenever I want to do a more warm toned eyeshadow look. I really like this palette in general. I really enjoy the NARS formula. I never have any issues with the pigmentation or applying or blending. And I really enjoy this color story in particular. This is a warm toned color story. There are some cooler tones too, but most of the shades, they lean very warm. But it's also a very sophisticated color story. Some of the shades in this palette are very similar to shades in the Charlotte Tilbury Beautyverse Love eyeshadow palette. So if you have missed out on this one and you have the Charlotte Tilbury, you're good. And I know we are all bored with these color stories from NARS. They do this all the time. I really hope the brand will give us something new now in 2025, something more innovative than just these warm tones. I did see the Afterglow Tempting palette. I think that's a new palette. That one is already available in the US. It's not available yet here in Europe. If you have that palette, please let me know what you think. Do you like it? Is it also very warm in tone, or is it more cool? Because on the promo pics it looks a little bit more cool in tone. I'm very curious to see that one in person. So if you have it, please share your experiences with me. And the last palette I want to talk about in this video is this palette from Bobbi Brown, the Jadestone palette. This was also a limited edition. It's discontinued, not available anymore, unfortunately. But I will show you a similar palette in a minute, so don't worry if you didn't purchase this one. I've included this palette in this video because this is a color story that I really adore. This palette contains several green shades, of course, several brown shades, a golden shade and peachy shades too. And I really think it's a pity that brands do not release that many new green eyeshadow palettes these days anymore. I'm not sure why, maybe green got out of style or something like that. But green is a shade that suits a lot of different skin tones and undertones. It doesn't matter if you're very pale or if you have a very deep skin tone, greens are always a good choice. And furthermore, greens are very easy to combine with other shades. You can combine green with browns, blues, silver, grays and black, but also rosy shades or pinks and peachy shade, orange shades, even reds work very well with green. So green in general is just a very versatile color to work with. So this palette from Bobbi Brown Jadestone palette was a limited edition. This one is not available anymore, unfortunately. But maybe you have this palette from Dior Backstage. This is the Khaki Neutrals palette. Maybe you have this one in your collection. You can create similar looks with this palette. The Khaki Neutrals has a similar vibe, similar colors as the Bobbi Brown Jadestone palette. And the reason I included the Bobbi Brown palette in this video and not this one is because I prefer the Bobbi Brown formula over the Dior Backstage formula. That's it, my friends. These are my most used, my favorite, my most beloved eyeshadow palettes for the winter season. Of course, I'm curious, what are your favorites? Maybe you have a recommendation for me. And I hope to see you soon. Have a lovely day. Bye bye.